Good evening, everyone. Marlboro County School Board's special call meeting Monday, February 26, 2018 is called to order. There's been notification of the news media and the Marlboro Herald is represented. And Mr. Branch, would you please have an invocation for us?
Yeah, let us pray. Lord, we just thank you so much for today, Lord. We just ask that you be with us tonight as we make decisions that affect the safety of our whole district. Lord, we just ask these things in your name, amen.
Thank you very much. We need a motion to approve the agenda.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve the agenda.
Is there a second? All in favor, please raise your right hand. And the motion is carried unanimously. And we have an action item tonight regarding a resource officer for Wallace Elementary Middle School, and Blenheim Elementary Middle School. Dr. Cobb. And Sheriff Lemon is here tonight.
I just want to put in a thank you while we're waiting for Dr. Cobb to come up to Sheriff Lemon and his staff for increasing their presence at our county schools. We appreciate it very, very much. Thank you.
Yeah. He's really put out.
Madam Chair, board members, at the last meeting, you were given the proposal from the Sheriff Department relative to school resource officers. I'll let him address that, as well as a recommendation from Mr. West Park in terms of proposed monies for school resource officers from the governor. I'll let him address that as well.
Thank you. Sheriff Lemon?
Good evening, Madam Chair, Superintendent, school board members, and to all who is in attendance this afternoon. I have passed out a package there to the school board member, to the superintendent, and to the chairman as to what the county administrator has outlined as far as the salaries, as far as the vehicle and equipment, what it would cost. And pretty much it's speak for itself. There ain't a whole lot I can say after that, but that's what you have in front of you is what it is as far as the vehicles and the equipment, and just keep in mind that the 2 vehicles will be just for that first time, and after that that'll be money that won't have to be spent because of the 2 vehicles. And I would yes sir.
What do you anticipate on the vehicles as far as replacement? Are you talking 5 years, 6 years, 7 years? Because that would be a cost that would come back around at some point in time.
Yes, sir. I would say 5 years.
About 5 years on
yes,
that?
Sir. Because they're not the vehicles that's going to be up and down the road every day like we are on calls and stuff. They'll be mainly driven, unless they need it, but they'll be mainly driven to the Wallace School and the Blenheim Middle School.
So we have the initial cost, and then for the next 4 years, that cost would not be there for these 2 resource officers. Basically, what you're saying, correct?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
And when will these resource officers be available?
Well, I can tell you that I have one that's already certified, and he's experienced. He has 5 years of experience as a school resource officer. The second one, and I'm sure you all know him, is Ross Childress. Ross is the one, the secondary, when I say secondary, it's called Train the Trainer. The one that is certified has been training him, and he needs about 2 more blocks, and that's something that can be done within 2 hours of class. And from there, he'd have to spend 3 days down at the academy, and that's something can be done with just merely picking up the phone and requesting it through the director of the academy.
Okay. So basically now.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
One quick question.
Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
The 26,000 for new vehicles, 2 cars at 26,000. Are those new vehicles?
Yes, ma'am. They are.
Okay. And we haven't gotten any offers of help from any sources in our county to help us with that cost.
I haven't seen it that I'm aware of. You know, I've been digging, and I ain't just started. I've been digging ever since we first come aboard, and I'm sure you all know, and I won't get into the validity of it, what occurred up at the Wallace Middle School was a pretty dangerous situation. And
It's a real situation.
I'm just thankful to God that things was quickly gotten on to. I got the call, and within about 10 minutes, I was there. And then again, I just happened to be heading in that area. That was one of the reasons I got there so quickly. But the sheriff department responded pretty quickly, and once we got there, we quickly got things under control. And once I got there, of course, the staff at the school did a real good job. The principal did a real good job. They had the kid where they're supposed to have him. But my concern was when I got there, I didn't see the kid, and everything was going well, and I wanted to lay eyes on the kid and see what was going on. And after I did, the kid told me some things that led to some things that led to some things, and I would say that's why Marlboro County didn't make national news, and I'm very humble and appreciative of that. And again, the school principal and her staff, Dr. McLeod, Dr. Cobb, Mr. McNeil, they was there before I got there, and I can say that they played a major part in that, because my people got there shortly, right around when they got there, and they was wrapping things up pretty good and doing some stuff that really, really helped us. And I can appreciate that, and I can appreciate them for that.
Dr. Cobb mentioned something about some funding source. Wes, do you have information for us?
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. Thank you.
The governor recommended a $5 million funding for those districts that are not able to afford school resource officers. We'll see whether or not it actually makes it through the first round of budget, which is a Ways and Means budget. So that is what is proposed, and if you look at if they follow what is considered to be the Abbeville districts, along with those districts that are 80% poverty, there's roughly 48, so just say 50 divided by, $5 million. Very possibly we could see $100,000 a year in funding. And the real question is whether or not they would fund our district if we were to initiate that prior to this this upcoming budget year. So that's the caveat in this discussion.
Let me ask you something. If we go ahead and do this now, could we then use those other funds to add additional SROs?
Certainly, if that does happen, there again, I mean, assuming that the district, as we go through the budget process, is able to afford, I'm hearing some pretty discouraging news right now. Just being quite frank with you, no increase in base student cost. This is what the initial Ways and Means budget is anticipating. So last year we had about $150, I believe. I think that was the number. But anyway, no increase in base student costs. So that can be along with a 2% increase in teacher salary, of which a portion of that increase we're going to have to fund ourselves. So I think we've got some real budget challenges as we work through, and we probably won't know exactly where we're going to be with the budget until May. But we're just seeing coming out of the box, there's some real challenges that we're going to have to balance this budget.
Big question. Do we have the money to do this right now?
We do not have it in the budget. We do not. The only way we can do it is by using fund balance.
How much do we have in fund balance?
About $3.2 million.
So we're only talking about using $133 to protect the children's lives, right?
I understand that. Yes, sir.
I'm in favor of using fund balance for this.
Okay. And one of the other possibilities in terms of the vehicles.
One question
yeah,
before you get to that.
certainly.
Are you saying And I just want to be clear on this. If we take it from fund balance, which is not good for us because
Right.
of all the financing we have to do,
Sure.
and then we've got to add that in our budget this year, you're saying we might have to.
Well,
But
I
I'm
mean
just
that- yeah.
saying that, will that preclude us from getting the governor's money? Now, her question was for additional SRO officers. I don't think it would.
Right, but I think it would.
Because we show we can do it, then they won't give us anything.
That's correct. And it's kind of like what happens with special revenue. If we're actually paying for things, we're not able to supplement if we've already built it into our general budget. So obviously that's the concern that I have. And there again, I don't know necessarily if the governor's recommendation will make it through the budget. It may or may not, but I think if his recommendation does pass, then I think that most likely our existing officers wouldn't qualify unless they just do a blanket thing to all Abbeville districts, and that's not what I'm reading right now.
You were going to talk about the cars? I interrupted you.
One of the things about the cars, what we did with Bennettsville was we actually paid annual installments because what they did when they purchased the vehicles, they did a 5-year lease purchase, and that could be something that may be able to be accomplished through the county. So then the amount would be the same each year for 5 years. You wouldn't have that upfront cost. So
we're
that would be a
talking, excuse me,
consider.
we're talking about $52,000 up front, and what you're saying, the city worked something where you could do, they did a lease purchase on the
Lease
car.
purchase, so we basically, on that 52,000, we probably paid about 11,000 a year for 5 years rather than paying 52 up front. And in our situation it
Save 40-something.
yeah, because it comes directly, the issue I think we're gonna, it's gonna hit our fund balance if we do that right now, or in next year's budget, it will be another item that, we're gonna have to provide for that we may not have. We'll have to look at other things to cut, which might be really tough.
How much would it, I'm sorry, Mr. Coachman, you go ahead.
Go ahead, sir.
How much would it cost? Because, the budget starts again in July.
It does.
So how
It's
much
only
would
a-
it
it's
cost
a
between
proration.
now and July?
Well, depending on, if we're talking, I don't know whether that ends up being a third of the year, and depending on, I'm not sure whether this is a 190-day calendar, how that would work out if it's 60 school days. Yes, sir.
I understand everything that you're saying and concerned about the fund balance and all that. But it's our responsibility to make sure that our students are safe and our staff is safe in these schools.
I'm not going to debate that.
And the thing I'm saying is that we need to go ahead and make this happen.
I do.
To make sure that we put everything in place and make sure that we got resource officers in these schools to protect as soon as possible. And we need to go ahead and approve this and make sure that the sheriff department and the county get what they need to protect our children and staff.
Would we have to get $133,000 out of the fund balance when we're almost?
That's what I just asked you.
What we're saying here is, I guess that's an annual proposal. Is that correct? Is that for the entire?
You don't have to get that out now.
So if you were able to put it in the budget, then we wouldn't really have to take that much out of.
About a third of that, I'm guessing, is what
Right.
it would probably be.
Would someone like to make a motion?
Yeah, Madam Chair.
Hold on one moment, wait, just one moment.
I really-
On the car issue, can I address Sheriff Lemon on that? Did you hear his statement about the lease purchase on the vehicles? Because we got $52,000 up front here. If we hire a resource officer, they got to have a car. So what about lease purchase over 5 years where we're talking less money per year?
I would have to get that answer from the county administrator because they fund the money for some reason I don't. And what I did was I got it outlined according to the way it needs to be. And I'd hate to we'll give you some answers, and then later on find out to be different. So I don't have the answer to that. But I do have what's in front of you, solid concrete as to what it is, on what needs to be.
I'm
think
hoping
that's
we can
something
work
that-
through Ron Munell.
Yeah, it can be worked out.
As county administrator.
That can be
Could
worked
the
out.
motion be made in a way that you work out what would have to happen between now and July 1, the beginning of the fiscal year, and then either in that same motion or in another motion, fund this for the next year, which would happen when we adopted the budget?
We need to start this now.
Oh, we're going to do something now. Madam Chairman, and you correct me, I make the motion.
Speak up a little bit.
I make the motion that we do hire 2 resource officers with their FICA, the retirement, the health insurance, and the personal equipment as soon as possible, and that we ask that the county administrator inform the sheriff as to whether or not we can do a lease purchase on the police cars spread over a 5-year period. These funds to come out of our fund balance between now and the end of this fiscal year, which is July the 1st. The amounts that are listed, provided by the sheriff, would be prorated for this year. Secondarily in that motion, that we would address this issue in the budget for next year. I think we need to put all of that in there, don't you?
Second.
Yeah. Second. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion's carried unanimously. Congratulations. All right. Thank you, Sheriff Lemon.
Thank you all. Thank you all.
Do you have anything for executive session?
Next, we need to go to executive session. If someone would please make a motion, this is for personnel matters and receipt of legal advice.
So, we'll move.
Second.
All in favor, please raise your right hand. We're unanimous and go into executive session. From executive session, would someone please make a motion to go back into open
I
session?
move we go back into open session, Madam Chairman.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion's carried unanimously. No action was taken, no decision was made. And Mr. Coachman.
Madam Chair, I make a motion, we adjourn this very nice, quick meeting.
Amen.
Second.
All in favor, raise your right hand. Mr. Coachman, you know, you have to really work hard when you're away.
That's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, nobody adjourns like you.
Well, I appreciate it. That's the part.